for when we're tired, just like pull in case of emergency is just Lindsey and Donte recording on pre. That sounds like some chaos energy though, not gonna lie.
Emergent pre. Just cross out the words emergency, emergent pre.
Emergent pre. Oh, I love it. This is the Mud Peddlers, a podcast where two nerdy ceramic artists share the behind the scenes of their worlds of clay. We are your hosts, Lindsey M Dillon.
And I am Donte of Earth Nation.
This week on the Mud Peddlers, we are exploring questions to ask yourself before you say yes to selling at an in-person event.
Yeah, how are babies made?
Well...
Oh, wrong. My bad. No, we're on the Mud Peddlers.
We're on the Mud Peddlers,
Not the Night Peddlers.
We're about to go record the Night Peddlers because part of what made me think of this question as a topic was that Donte just got back from a new event that you're thinking about selling at.
Yeah, there's this place in Nevada City called the Curious Forge, and they held an event called Mud and Glory.
Yes, and I will be interviewing Donte about the details of his experience on the Night Peddlers.
What?
So
that's where I say the bad words.
Oh yeah, that is where we say the bad words.
That's where we say the bad words.
Mostly because YouTube doesn't want us saying the bad words.
Yeah.
So that's why I bleep them out on the Mud Peddlers.
Yeah.
But yes, I will be interviewing Donte about his experience at this new show. So if you'd like to listen to all of the details, you can go to patreon.com / slash, I don't know if it's forward or backslash.
It's /
Lindsey M Dillon. And you can sign up to be a member of our Patreon and get exclusive access to our sister podcast called...
That's where all the good stuff is.
That's all the good stuff. Let's explore some of the questions. So do you want to go first or should I go first?
No, go first. I feel like I talk far too much for my own good. Please go ahead.
Overarching, the first kind of big question that I ask myself when I'm deciding whether to go into a new event is, how much will prepping for this screw up my current production schedule?
Yeah, true.
Then that's kind of, I guess, and if I were to narrow that down to maybe a bit of an easier question, because again, that question is easier to answer if you've been doing in-person events for a while, but if you're still relatively new to selling, you may not be sure, can I squeeze this in? But I guess in general, I would ask myself, so within that question of how much is this gonna screw up my production schedule is just kind of how big is the event?
Yeah.
Is it a one-day event that lasts for 4 hours? Or is it
Do I gotta travel for this?
Do I gotta travel for this?
Oh, I hate those.
Oh, yeah. Or is it also a big weekend event like SAC Anime? And I'm gonna try, for the sake of you, dear listeners, I'm going to try and ask these questions as specific questions so that if you are keeping a list for yourself, it is easy to keep track of. But... So the question of, is this gonna mess up my production schedule, can be narrowed down into the question of how big is the event, which is exactly how many days and hours is it? But you just asked Donte, is do I have to travel for it?
Do I have to spend the night somewhere? Do I have to get a hotel? Because that goes into costs. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that I think of immediately.
Yeah. How much is it going to cost? Not just for the table, because the table fee is a whole other thing, but if you have to travel for it, if you want to stay on the safe side, it is much easier to do, especially if you're new to selling. And we talked about some of this in our episode a while back about how to choose your first selling at your first in-person event. But this episode we're going into more detail about the kinds of questions that you'll be asking yourself.
This is the pre-list. This isn't just how to choose an event. This is what are some of the things that I need to really consider before I choose an event? Because the other list was once I have chosen an event, what do I need to be at said event? Yeah.
How have you evaluated some of the events that you've thought about going to? What are some of the other questions?
Easy, okay. The first thing that I look for specifically is the closest event to me. Because we have Renaissance fairs here in Folsom, which is maybe a 30-minute drive, right? And then I have to figure out, how much does the table cost? Right. And then I have to figure out how much money it's going to cost to not only set up and what the table offers me. So are they going to give me chairs or do I got to load that in the car?
Yes.
Are they going to give me a big enough table? Do I have a sheet for the table to go over? Do I have the right aesthetic? Do I have signs? Stuff like that. That's the first thing I always calculate. And if I have those things, then I look for the closest event. Because realistically, one of the biggest determining factors in choosing a table is how much the table costs, how long it is, and how far it is.
Yeah.
We both love Fanime, right? And Fanime is like easily a $1,000 table.
I don't know if it's that much now. Sac Anime has gotten up to...
Sac Anime is $970. I just paid that bill.
Yeah. Wait, $970. I think mine was like $870.
I bought a couple extra tickets.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
I always, But as far as, like, I love Fanime, but I have to have a hotel. And then I have to either rent or borrow someone's truck because my Toyota Corolla is not toting 100 pounds of pottery or 100 pieces of pottery.
Yeah.
With that weight. And then I have to get gas and then I have to get food and I need an assistant realistically for a 3-day event because it is a 3-day event.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not making more money than all those things costs, I'm not going to the event. If I add up gas, travel time, stuff like food, hotel. But if I have an event that's super close to me, like we go to Sac Anime, it's a parking spot and like the table fee?
Yeah, that's another big thing to consider is like if you do decide to go to an event is like where is the parking available? Like, are you going to have to like park way off site? When we demonstrated at the California State Fair.
Oh my God.
We had to park way the hell out.
In Timbuktu.
Timbuktu.
Oh my God.
And drag all of our stuff in. And that's another good example, I feel like, for like even at Fanime. Cause like, okay, so I've sold at Fanime, 2-3 times, I think.
Yeah.
And the last time I went, I think that year there were 5-6 of us, I think, staying in the hotel room or something like that.
You almost need a deadbeat friend to take, because if your friend got jobs, they're like, I gotta work, I can't just come with you.
Yeah, well, not necessarily, because I mean, depending...
You need someone who has no job.
That's not necessarily true.
You need a couch surfing friend.
That's not true. Because they can take if they're interested in helping you out, they can take the Thursday off or whatever. But yeah, so my mom's partner at the time had like a big ass truck that we had to use, and the other thing too is like I don't just bring like 100 cups to these events because I think I've figured out a sweet spot for the number of cups that I need to bring. But that particular year, the last time that I sold at Fanime, I think I brought like 200 pieces or something like that.
Yeah, Fanime sells.
Yeah. So not only did I have to lug all of that stuff down there, but it took up so much room in the hotel because there was that was when I had like a 3-foot by 6-foot display space in the artist alley. So I couldn't even bring all of my inventory and keep it behind the table.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like talking about parking, Fanime does not have, and this is at least as far as the last time I went, they don't have easy places for you to park to set up. So I was having to lug all of my stuff from the hotel, like across the street and down the way.
Yeah.
All the way into the convention center, so it's just like this, it's still, I think, can be worth it, but it's definitely the question of, as we always ask, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Is the juice worth the squeeze? And do you even like that kind of juice?
That's what I like that. Yeah, no, that's...
Like, what are you doing this for? Like, what's the end product of it? Of course, it's money.
Yeah. That's actually a really good question to ask, is like, why are you doing this event?
I came up with it myself.
Yeah. 10 points.
I'm the first,
points.
Actually.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
I'm shocked.
I know. Me too.
How brilliant.
Huh?
But no, that is a very good question, because like I think there are different reasons that people go to, go decide like what event to go to. Like, to be honest, again, I'll ask you more questions about your most recent experience at this new event, like on the Mud Peddlers.
Yeah.
But my reason for potentially selling at that event is, not gonna lie, mostly to kind of be there to support you. Well, because when, again, because this kind of leads into another question of when you're evaluating an event, is like, what is the audience like? Because I know, based on the work that I sell, that Fanime, Sac Anime,
absolutely,
those are good events because I make geek shit and they're geeks.
They sell it. Also, the Sac Anime and Fanime crowd is, this is a blanket statement, I will fully admit, is just more acceptable. And I know I come from those cultures. So, like, they're just more accepting and usually nicer to me than, like, an arts and crafts table. Let me just put some Dante spice on it.
Tell me.
Okay.
Give me the spice.
Okay. The amount of Karens at an art and craft festival
I knew it was coming.
is way higher than the amount of Karens you're gonna get at like an anime table.
Yeah.
The culture is different. Like the place that Karens are born from that like to go are like art festa, and then they always want to barter with you, and there's always get like one person a year who looks at your stuff like, I can buy this at Walmart, and you're like, go to Walmart then.
Yeah.
But they think they're bartering by downgrading your, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
By insulting you somehow, I've made it less, therefore give it to me for less now.
Yeah.
So I don't have that happen at anime conventions. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I just don't have it happen. So I prefer to go to tables that are more like that. And you're right. Kind of knowing where you're going to go and knowing your clientele is a huge thing. When we go to Sac Anime and Fanime, we make nerd stuff because the nerd stuff sells at a nerd place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I went to an arts and crafts table, I'd probably make a bunch of sandstone buff and dragon fruit half glazed cups in the color blue, purple, white, and red. And then somehow make them look like drippy mugs.
Ah, yes.
And those would sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Target women love that.
Target women love
that. Target women are where Karens come from.
It's a nice aesthetic. It's a really nice aesthetic.
I like it, but I also, again, know my clientele. And I know that's most of you.
Yeah. And if you're still relatively new to selling and you're still figuring out like your like the kinds of clientele that fits your work.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of like going back to like the reasons like why you would be going to an event.
Yeah.
A really good reason to go to an event is to see like, are these my people?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Is this a good, so even if you don't, you know, again, just looking at different like paradigms of success, even if you don't sell a lot, or even if you make negative money, you know, even if you don't really sell much, like you can still get information from going to obviously we all want to make money. Obviously.
Well, yeah, if you can do both, do it.
Yeah, if you can do both, ideally, yes. But it is, know that you can get more out of an event than just money, obviously.
Knowing your audience and the table you're going to before you get there, regardless of, because once you figure out you're going there and you know the motif, like you got to figure it out. Like I really want to start doing 4 tables a year. I want to do 2 Sac Anime. I want to do Mud and Glory, and then I also want to do a Renaissance fair.
And Mud and Glory is the one that you just went to in...
Yes.
Yeah.
But as far as the Renaissance one, like I got to start making more Steins and Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I just have to. I would not show up to a table at the Renaissance Fair with a bunch of Pikachu cups.
Yeah.
You might be able to sell some, but the chances that there will be people at a place dressed like Vikings who also like Pikachu, well, actually, that's a cross.
Yeah, actually, there is
a cross.
That's the thing is, like, I could see it, but what I could almost see...
is people being like, why are you here?
Unless you had Pikachu designs, but in like a Viking aesthetic, which I would actually love to see.
Pikachu with a beard and some chainmail on.
Aww.
No, I was just spitting. Don't get touched. Don't get touched. Don't get touched. But yeah, so you might want to do just a little bit of pre-work. Like you and I do stamps and silk screens.
Yeah.
Right. So like I'm gonna make a silk screen specifically for that event, but that usually takes months. I have to make it on my computer, and then I have to order it in, and then I have to figure out what color I have, and then I have to figure out, like, I'm not gonna bring a bunch of porcelain to a Renaissance fair. I'm probably using red stone or some type of red grog clay, because it's the earthy type of clay that you expect to find at a Renaissance fair.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what I'm bringing, right? So I have to get, like, 200 pounds of, like, dark stone clay that I can throw. Like, there's things that I need to prep for before going to a table that has that specific style and artwork. Yes. Right? Yeah. And I'm not saying you can't sew your work if you don't go along with the flow of the motif.
Yeah, or also, that you have to completely, like, if you have no interest in doing, like, you know, Renaissance style or, like historically zhuzhed mugs, like you don't have to completely adopt a new style. Right. But like what you're saying, like that all goes back into that question of, is this going to completely disrupt my production schedule? Yes. Because for instance, if you've primarily worked with like a white clay body, for instance, you know, and you're suddenly going to be needing to buy a completely new kind of clay, like redstone or whatever. Yeah. Thinking about, okay, how many pieces and this, again, another question, how many pieces am I going to have to make for this piece? Are those pieces different from what I normally make?
Yeah.
And then if so, what are the materials that I need to buy to enable me to begin to produce inventory for this event?
Yeah.
And also, going back to the other question, how many pieces do I need to sell at this event? You know, and that goes back to, is it a one-day event with a few hours or a weekend event, you know?
Mine's like 70. 70 is like, I'm okay. Like, I'll go to an event with 70 cups, but 70 is kind of low for me.
I think 200 or 250 is my, like, I feel safe at 250 cups for, like, a SAC anime event.
I feel safe at 120, and I feel like I can go at 70. Because at 70, it's like, I'm probably going to sell it as long as these are all quality. 120 is like, I might have some left over, and I could probably put those on the website, earthnationceramics.com. At 150, I'm like, I'm going to a table, and I'm probably going to have a store update right after this to get rid of the rest of them, and then that way I can start my new cycle.
Gotcha.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I usually don't go over 200 just because, not because I don't, well, actually, it's just a lot of production. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I have my store, and then I have the other 3 tables as well as that table. And at SAC Anime, I'm usually with Tea Cozy, and because they sell tea, I want to sell tea cups and mugs and, like, ramen bowls. I want to sell things that are around that aesthetic, right? So, like, right now, I'm gearing up for that.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know, I'm not saying you can't, but I would not bring a bunch of soup bowls to a tea table.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I just wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Now that ties in very much with, like, who is the audience?
Know your audience,
and know your audience. Or if you're not sure what the audience is, then either consider making a variety of different designs to see what sticks.
True.
Or if you are like, I'm gonna make just ramen bowls, then know that, okay, then you'll get information on seeing how well that sells.
I'm gonna make just ramen bowls.
Just ramen bowls. So, okay, so going back to some of the other initial, or some of the questions that you asked, like, around, like, do they provide a table? I've got a few more questions that I've written down kind of along those lines of, like, what materials does the venue provide?
That's a big one.
Do they provide a table covers, chairs? Do they provide a pop-up tent? This is super important.
Especially if it's outside, you need a pop-up tent, or you need to provide one.
Yeah. Do they provide electricity, easy access to bathrooms? Do they have adequate Wi-Fi? All of these things will help make the event easier or harder to prepare for.
That Wi-Fi one is big.
Wi-Fi one is huge, especially because card transactions, like, so many, I'm actually amazed at how many people bought things just by tap with, like, the Apple Pay type thing.
There's technology out there I don't even know about.
Yeah, it's wild.
They use their watches.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it, though.
So Wi-Fi is incredibly important for that. And that goes back into what specific items do I need to bring? And that's kind of its own whole set of questions.
For me, there's 2 different parts. There's choosing the table and seeing if it complies with my finances. Because, for example, if I go to San Jose and the table costs, let's just say $500, right? If it costs $500 and then hotel costs like $200 a night, and it's a 3-night event, I've immediately spent $1,100, right? So if I do not make over $1,000 at this event in those 3 days, I am losing money already. Yeah. At that point, it's just clout. At that point, it's just people saw me there and they like my work, and I'm getting followers, which is valuable in and of itself. But having an event that's closer, like SAC Anime, is, even though it's a $1,000 table, travel time and hotel is no longer included as much anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, what? It's like a gallon of gas to get there and back. And then also you have to tote all that stuff.
Yeah.
You probably know the area a little bit better, so you kind of know where and where to get. I will say this, whenever I go to San Jose for Fanime, I usually get there at like 7 a.m. and then I pay a guy like $80. And I'm like, this is my parking spot for 3 days. And he goes, yep. They have people who do that for you.
This is for, sorry, which event?
Fanime.
Oh, for Fanime. Yeah.
Fanime, but if you get there like 2 hours later, nope. So you got to go to the hotel at like 7 a.m. You got to drop your stuff off, including all your work. Then you got to park the car, and hopefully your assistant is at the hotel clocking you in with your card or your stuff. You got to trust them, of course. And then you got to walk from the space in which you parked your car and then tote all your other stuff, being like your hair and your makeup and your, I don't wear makeup, but whatever. And like your clothes.
Any like cosplay or
any
whatever.
cosplay stuff. Yeah, if you want to really get in the mood. Any stuff like that, you got to tote all that up. So like, getting a prime spot early is important for parking, especially because the vehicle is the thing that transports all your stuff. Do not sign up for a table, and I know I sound like someone's dad right now. Do not sign up for a table and get there at 1 p.m. and the table starts at 5. Get there hella early. Clock in your stuff, especially if you're traveling.
Like, because setup will probably take longer than you think it's going to.
I at least need an hour for setup, and then after I've set it up, I still look at it like, what could be better?
Dude, I need like hours for setup because part of it is, and this kind of, oddly enough, this actually goes into the question of like, does the event provide insurance, or do you need to buy like insurance for yourself?
Yeah.
Because like when I do setup, like it's not just putting stuff out on the table, but it's also trying to unpack as much of my inventory that's in boxes and putting it underneath the table. But like I had a situation last year where these 2 young kids, and some of this admittedly is on me because just putting cups under the table is kind of risky.
Yeah.
But, there's a couple kids. One kid picked up their sibling and swung them around.
Oh my God.
And knocked over a couple cups. And in that case, it wasn't that bad because it was only a couple cups, but if they'd like knocked over a sculpture, that would have been rough. And I've had that happen at an event at the first in Sika in Sacramento.
I remember that.
Yeah. Somebody knocked over one of my like big sculptural pieces. So this kind of goes to that question of what is the financial risk of attending this event? And that kind of goes into like travel time and table cost. And that's
I never buy insurance.
I'm
a potter. I'm just like, I'll make another. Unless it's a really, really nice piece. I'm just like, I'll make another one. So
I have never bought insurance for an event either, but I know that Ryan Durbin really heavily advocates for buying insurance. And I'll never forget, he shared a story one time about someone basically, it was at an outdoor event and it was windy and they had not tied down their tent. No, what's it called? The pop-up? Their like pop-up shade thing?
Yeah,
No, I still have COVID brain. I had COVID recently, so...
I have one of those. I just don't know. I've always called them the big shade.
The big shade. I like that. So they hadn't tied down their big shade enough, and the wind picked up and literally threw the pop-up tent into the building and, like, smashed a big window. So it wasn't even that they lost their own stuff. Their tent literally damaged another building. No. And that event was a complete wash financially now because all of that money, because they didn't have insurance, went towards repairing that building's window.
That's crazy.
So keep in mind that I think, okay, I feel a little bad recommending this. So know that this is, I guess, a bit of a risky recommendation. But I think if you're relatively new and you're just going to an event where like, maybe it's your first or second time selling, you're going to like a single day pop-up event and you've got maybe 20 pieces with you, probably not worth it to buy insurance because even if, again, it's still risky because your pop-up tent could fly into a building and break a window, but...
somebody can come up, like, anything could happen.
Right.
God's plan.
God's plan, yeah. It really, honestly, it just depends on your risk tolerance. If you...
Yeah, and what you brought to the table. If you have those keys.
Well, but again, it's not always about just what you brought to the table. It's also, like, what are the potential other things that could go awry? Because I don't think anyone would initially think of needing insurance because their tent lifted up and crashed into a building. Right? Like, that's wild.
I don't know what that person did to deserve that. Or you just do, like, the Boy Scout thing where you're like, well, it's windy, and the thing above me will pick up if it's windy enough. I should tie this down.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, it's probably...
For outdoor events, especially, it's the tent. Crashing their tent into the window. I am much more concerned about insurance now. But so far, it hasn't been, like, I've been willing to accept that risk. But to be honest, I think that is probably going to change in the future. Just because, I don't know, in general, my, like, risk tolerance is getting lower, I feel like.
Yeah, I generally bring, like, cups and bowls and whatnot. And unless somebody breaks an entire stack of stuff, I'm like, well, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat, too. Like, the person who, like, kicked the parents of the kids who, like, broke a couple mugs. Oh, they look so mad. But I was like, honestly, dude, like, don't even worry about it. And I think he ended up buying, like, another cup just kind of because he felt bad.
Makes sense.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to ask, what time is the setup? Because kind of like what you were saying about getting there as early as possible.
I chill.
Yeah.
I chill when even the table that you and I do.
Yeah.
At Sac Anime, it starts at like 9:30. I get there at like 7:30. Set up, get my power source.
Do you set up? Oh no, but you set up the day before, right? Because loading.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
And then I come out early anyway.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I double check, make sure all my stuff is there, make sure the cell phones are working. Get my power source, talk to the people, walk around, look at other people's stuff.
I love that part of it.
I get me a coffee, you know what I mean? A little blended, something like that. Get some food. I sit down, then the other people who are doing the table with me are like, Donte, you're here. And I'm like, yeah, I've been here. I've edited a video already. You know, I love that part. I love that part of the table. I get there extra. I know I sound old as right now.
No, I totally hear you. I mean, and that's like, honestly, that's a thing to consider too, is that like, not all events will let you get there that early or set up that early. Like, and that's, you know, like that kind of goes into a bit of like the how big is the event and also how established is the event.
Yeah, true.
Because if it's a new event, I generally, because of how busy my production schedule is, I generally would rather not risk going to a new event unless it's like real specific and perfect. Like if there was an event where it's like, yeah, Lindsey, we have this new event and it's all for people who love creatures and monsters. It's a new event, but would you be interested? I'd be like, hell yeah. Like if it's in Sacramento, it's like, yeah, that's it. And again, this is not meant to like on people who are, you know, new to setting up events, because I think honestly anyone who's willing to try and coordinate an event that like brings people together and like supports the arts, like I am all for that.
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere. It's just that, you know, if you're new to something, you're more likely to not foresee, you know, things. So so load in time and load out time is also really important, because, you know, I was watching another story on Instagram recently where someone was, I wish I could remember their name, but someone was selling at an event and the vending area closed like 2 hours before the event itself closed. Oh. So they had to wait, not being able to sell anything, for like another 3 hours before they could finally start loading out. So keeping in mind, like, and that's not, and I don't know how new that particular event was, but that's like keeping it, what am I trying to say?
You won't get return.
Yeah.
You will not get return. They did that to me at Fanime one time, and I was like,
oh, really? Wait, what do you mean?
So there was I want to say my second or third year at Fanime, they specifically told me we had a problem with people who would leave early and leave the tables, and then other people would start to take those tables, but they didn't pay for that space. So in order to amend this, they said, if you leave early, regardless of whether you've sold out or not, we will not invite you back next year.
Oh, I wonder if that was because of me.
No, I don't know.
I hope not, because
I think many people were doing it, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
But you know me, I don't like, if I'm pushed, I just like stand my ground. I just push back.
Yeah.
So they were like, hey, you're trying to leave early. And I was like, I went up to the table where the people were and I said, I sold out. I have 3 items left and there's still a day left of the con. I'm going to leave. And they were like, just so you know, you will not get invited back. And I was like, well, I'm not going to stand at a table with 3 items for an entire day. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So what do I do?
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't know. And I was like, do you have a backup plan for this? Or, because like that would be ridiculous, right? And they agreed. They weren't the people in charge. They were just like,
yeah, they were the ones conveying the message.
And I was like, do you have any info on this? And they were like, no, we have no idea.
Yeah.
And I was like, tell you what, I'm just gonna leave because you guys change owners every year anyway. So, and then I just left, and they never mentioned it again.
That's great. That's great.
I was like, you guys change who runs this thing every year, and so I don't think the next people are going to know about me. Anyway, so I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to leave my table empty, and I'm going to enjoy the con and hang out with my girlfriend. Like,
yeah.
And that was that. But making that kind of rule is, you're going to lose people like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of get where they're coming from, because it doesn't look good if you have a bunch of empty tables towards the end of an event. But it also, it is also not great. But that all, like, and that also, that kind of, because I, you know, again, it's only relatively recently that I've finally figured out how many pieces I need to bring to an event to actually last all 3 days. But that's also, like, again, to some degree, that's also to some degree, like, on you as the artist to be like, how many pieces do I need to bring? Yeah. You know, to be able to last the whole weekend. But again, that's something you learn, like, with experience.
Yes. Yeah, and table size. And like you learn, like, is the event 3 days or 1 day? Okay, do you need 70 pieces or do you need 300 pieces?
Right,
like, depending on how big the event is.
Yeah.
Like, fan anime is easily 200, 300 pieces. But sack anime is like, I'll bring 120 something and be fine. You know?
Yeah, yeah. But that does, like, you're talking about your experience at Fanime does kind of bring it back to another question, which is, it's a little trickier, but it's like, who are the folks running the event? Like, I think a really good thing to do, especially if you have never sold at this event, is, like, ask yourself another question, which is, who else is selling at the event?
Yeah.
And that can be really helpful to not only for figuring out if your work will fit in well, but also if you can always reach out to another artist who has been there. Like, if it's a new event and you don't know who else is going to be there, you can ask the event coordinators, like, who else is going?
Yeah.
And then you can always reach out to one of the other artists and be like, hey, like, do you know anything about the folks putting this event together? Like, why did you say yes? You know, and I think in general, the community can offer a lot. Like, I know I'm always really happy to talk about my experiences selling at different places, because it's really hard to figure out, like, what is going to be a good event, like what's going to fit your style, what's going to be the right audience, what's going to be, how much is the investment cost versus how much you're going to make from it. All of that can be really intimidating and it can kind of be a lot. So I always recommend, like, reaching out and asking other artists for advice about things, because I know I definitely learned a ton from other artists, and especially when it comes to who's running the event. Like, if it's somebody that, you know, again, it gets a little tricky, but it's like, if it's someone that you've, like, heard a bunch of bad stuff about, it's kind of like, all right, maybe, you know, but that also, you know, that kind of gets into, like, when you're deeper into the community and you're more embedded and you start to, like, learn more about. But I don't know. I mean, every society has its drama. Every community has its drama. So.
Of course it does. I remember at the first, like, sack anime, they just invited, like, all... Because it used to be held at the Scottish Rites Masonic Center, remember?
Right,
And then they moved it over to the convention center once it kind of got revamped. But I remember there's people that were pretty much just selling, like, pornographic moe pillows.
Yeah.
After, like, the third year, the people who got hands on it, because I think they started to hand it over to other people after a while, were just like, look, man, you're kind of making people lose clientele. Like, you have the right to express yourself as an artist the way you want, but it kind of seems like you're just selling porn with fabric on it of anime characters.
Which is not a problem, but that's why they have, like...
That's why they have it now.
Yeah.
But before, that guy was, like, next to me.
Oh my god.
And so people who had kids were coming to check out my ceramics. And I do not have to tell you that middle-class moms are in the ceramic art community. Yeah. They are some of the biggest buyers of our work. Yeah. And they will not come to my table if I'm next to porn pillow guy. Yeah. which is why it's good to have, like, I'm really glad that Sack Anime finally created, like, I know it's not called Degenerate Alley, but that's what I'm calling it. That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, where it's or like, what is it, at Fanime they call it, like, the Silver Island or whatever. Nobody goes to the Silver Island anymore?
Well, the last con we went to, I tried to go in there and check it out, and it was empty. But it was full of, like... I feel really bad, but it was full of the stereotype. It was full of, like, people who look like they would... You know, because most people who buy moe pillows are buying them, like, as a joke for their friends and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
But then there's people who buy them on, like, a serious note.
Yeah.
And that room was full of those guys.
Oh, that wasn't my experience when I went there.
I went there and
I saw a bunch of, like, vendors selling, like, cute, you know, happy penis stickers and stuff. Like, I was very pleased. It
was empty when I went in.
Yeah, no, that's...
Except for the vendors, of course.
Yeah, no,
Maybe I went at the wrong time.
That's fair. But that is very much a good thing to know about, because I would be very upset if I paid a bunch for a table and then there was another artist next to me who, you know, again, it's not about their work being, like, morally good or bad. It's about fit, and it's about whether there is a space for that specifically.
What kind of clientele you're trying to attract and sell to, really. That's all it is. Like I wouldn't go to a Christian youth center and sell that stuff.
Oh my god.
You know what I mean? Like, I just wouldn't. Not only because it seems the wrong place, wrong time, it also just, like, I clearly am not going to make money at that event.
Yeah, if it was like a There would be a lot of other questions I would ask. Like, I think if I was selling at if I ever got invited to like a Christian geek youth event.
Or any religion thing.
I would very much ask like, okay, how do you feel about like the LGBTQ like plus community?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about queer people? Like, there would be a lot of other questions. Cause again, it's like, there's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing inherently wrong with religion. It's about, like, how the people who are a part of it treat other people.
Yeah, true.
And I would not sell at an event for church that, like, thinks that trans people are against God. Yeah. Like, that's just not gonna happen.
Look, as a general rule, if your religion requires you to hate someone else to get into your version of heaven, then you're probably part of a religion. Probably just hateful.
Point being, all right, so we've been talking for a bit. I'm going to just list off a bunch of questions. Some of them we've covered, but it's a little bit of like a TLDR. These are the questions.
I think as a general rule, I just try and choose the closest table with the lowest amount if I'm starting out. Mm-hmm. Because that gets me the most... Like, if I go to a really popular table, but it's far away and it costs a lot, regardless of whether I'm a beginner or not, it still costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, the Mud and Glory table, they're not going to charge me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go to it, and I'm going to sell my work to people who are of my culture.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to go to that. It's an hour away.
Yeah.
I'm technically going to make more money at the starting event than I will at, like, Star Trek Con or whatever. You know what I mean? In, like, Las Vegas. That I have to drive a bunch to get a hotel.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a bigger event. It's more popular, but just because it's bigger doesn't automatically equal more money.
Yes.
That's the main point I'm trying to make, is, like, location.
Location.
Yeah.
Yep. The questions that I have are... How big is the event? Is the event indoors or outdoors? Is the event established or newer?
How big the table, though?
How big is the table?
How do they get any chairs?
I'm going.
I'm sorry.
Let me get through my list.
They got a Wi-Fi?
They got a Wi-Fi, yeah. What materials does the venue provide? Do they provide a table covers, chairs, pop-up tent, electricity, easy access to bathrooms, Wi-Fi? What is the fee for the booth space? And is it a flat fee, or do they take a percentage of individual sales? Because some tables do that as well.
Yeah, which is crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, I get it. How does the event handle mishaps, and, like, do you need insurance? What time is set up, and where is the load-in area? And then who are the other vendors of the event? Are they emerging artists or more established? What style of work do they make? How will your work fit into that? How much money do I need to prepare for the event? Like, how far away is it? That goes back to, like, booth fee and stuff. And then just in general, like, does it kind of sound like an event you might be interested in?
Here's a crazy one, right? Here's one that only I ever think about. How walkable is food distance?
Oh, that's a big one. That's a really good one.
Because you bring food or you get food.
Yeah.
Because you're human and you need food on the daily.
You need food.
And
you need water. Yes.
Right?
That's a really good point.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Like for Sac Anime, Subway across the street for us.
Subway, yeah, it's great.
Not that I'm standing Subway or anything. I'm not like pro Subway.
Yeah.
Not that anything's wrong with them. I just don't like soggy sandwiches. They're damn near cookies, really. I don't know. Oh, they do have bomb cookies, though.
They do have good cookies.
They do have good cookies,
yeah.
Sorry, we're American. We're sorry.
There's a very particular enjoyment I get out of, like, really artificial cookies. Because, like, obviously, like, I love baking. I love making my own cookies because they're qualitatively and quantitatively better.
Here's the thing, though.
But
Subway does them wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Subway makes cookies incorrectly.
Yeah.
They always leave them soggy. They almost never cook them through.
Yeah, I think that's done intentionally.
They're so good, though.
Yeah, they are. They really are.
Oh.
Any other questions that we need to cover in terms of saying, what are some questions to ask yourself before you say yes to an event? Oh, in addition to, is the event newer? Are the people running the event experienced in event management? Yeah,
Lindsey and I, because we go to a lot of them events, have this thing where, like, almost every couple of years, they're like, it's under new management. Like, one of my tables is like, it's someone else is running it this year. And it's usually because the previous person's like, this is hard and you guys are ungrateful, so I'm not.
Yeah.
This is hard and you guys are super ungrateful for the amount of work.
Yeah. Bless the people who run these events, because I wouldn't want to do it.
And there's always someone who's like, I could do it correctly. And then 1 year later, this is hard, you guys are ungrateful.
Yeah.
Right? And so just be aware of who's running what and the things that change every year. Like, have a contact is what my thing always is. I always have somebody at Sac Anime that emails me back and forth.
Yeah.
And so I can have not insider knowledge, just knowledge of, like, what's going on before I get there. You know, I remember the first year I went to Sac Anime and they were like, no bags. And so I just didn't bring bags. But then everyone I saw walking around with bags, and everybody was bringing bags, and
yeah.
I talked to the people, and I said, y'all, it says right here in the text you sent me, no bags. And they were like, yeah, but people brought bags, so we can't really stop them now. And I was like, why make the rule if I can break it and you're cool with it and there's no punishment mechanic?
Oh my god.
So next time I just brought little paper bags. Yeah. Recyclable, of course. But,
and post-consumer materials and all that. And and just keep in mind that will be a cost when you think about the cost of... It will be a cost, yeah. And consider going eco-friendly because Lord knows the world doesn't need more plastic bags.
I hate plastic so much.
Yeah, me too.
It feels like an alien material to me.
Except mushrooms can eat it. Some mushrooms can eat plastics.
That's crazy.
Right?
Now I don't trust mushrooms either, to be honest.
I mean, mushrooms are great. Mushrooms are our friends.
Only my mushrooms.
Join the colony. Join the colony.
Oh, no. Are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay.
All right. Bye! And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Mud Peddlers. We would love to hear from you, so if you want to share your thoughts about the episodes or just see what Donte and I are working on in our studios, come say hi. You can find links to my social media at lindseyemdillon.com. That's Lindsey, M as in monster, DILLON.com.
And you can visit my pottery shop or see what I'm working on at earthnationceramics.com. And you can find me all over social media at Earth Nation Ceramics. It's spelled exactly how you think it's spelled.
And if you want to support the show, hear some bonus episodes, and see some behind the scenes of my work, you can support me and the show at patreon.com/Lindsey M Dillon. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.